Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a really specific event horizon. We're calling it the 2026 Climate Convergence.
And the big shift that follows.
Exactly. We've analyzed a whole stack of sources and they make one thing very clear for you. Climate threats, they're not long-term projections anymore.
Yeah, they're short-term. They're concrete financial liabilities.
Right, driven by a convergence of three big forces. Accelerating physical impacts, mandatory regulations, and of course, geopolitical fragmentation.
And that change isn't just academic. For anyone in strategic planning, for any CFO, the whole mandate has shifted. It's fundamental.
So we're past voluntary sustainability reports.
We are way past that. We are straight into mandatory operational resilience, into the actual financial quantification of your climate exposure. You are now accountable for this risk on your balance sheet.
Okay, let's unpack this. The sources are calling the mid-2020s the beginning of a permacrisis. So the first vector is that scientific acceleration. What's actually driving it?
Well, what's fascinating is the regional difference. The global warming average right now is, 1.1 degrees Celsius?
Okay.
But in these really economically vital regions, think Central and Southern Europe, large parts of North America, the number of extreme hot days is projected to spike by up to 3 degrees.
3 degrees, that's a huge gap.
It is.
Yeah.
And that gap translates directly into, an acute productivity crisis, a short-term financial shock for those specific economies.
And we're already seeing signs of this.
Oh, yeah. The widespread coral reef die-off, that's just been confirmed as the world's first formal climate tipping point. I mean, we talk about these things hypothetically.
But this one has been crossed.
We've stepped over the line.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally changes the entire risk conversation.
And these physical changes, they come with a direct, non-negotiable price tag.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at sea level rise, it's now at 3.6 millimeters a year. And that has already wiped out something like $15.8 billion in U.S. coastal property value alone.
And that's just the start. If you own property in a coastal zone, you have to care, because the forecasts are showing a 41% rise in insurance premiums by 2040.
41%.
And that hits property, sure, but also agriculture, transport infrastructure, right now.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for me. The economic shift is becoming mandatory, not voluntary. And there are two huge regulations converging in 2026.
That's the key. First, you have the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM. The full enforcement begins January 1st, 2026.
And this isn't just another tax.
No, not at all. It forces non-EU exporters to actually internalize their carbon costs just to keep their market access. It basically establishes a de facto global carbon shadow price.
At the same time, we've got new U.S. domestic laws.
Right. California's SB 261 and 253, they force mandatory disclosure of climate financial risks and all emissions, including Scope 3.
Okay, hang on. Let's put a pin in that. Scope 3 is just, it's the supply chain, right?
Yeah.
But why is it so notoriously complex?
Because you're not just tracking your own operations. You have to track the carbon footprint of all your raw material suppliers, the usage of your products, even their disposal. It demands totally new digital infrastructure.
Unprecedented data sharing.
Exactly, across thousands of companies.
So you're managing a balance sheet. This mandatory quantification, it just accelerates the realization of stranded assets.
Precisely. If climate risk is now a quantified liability on your books, you have to write down assets whose future cash flow is threatened.
Like what? Fossil fuel plants?
Power plants, pipelines, carbon-intensive factories, everything. And these new disclosure rules, they create clear grounds for liability litigation. We've already seen it with the PG&E bankruptcy after the wildfires.
So let's pivot to that final vector, geopolitical volatility. How does this fracture complicate a global shift that, it seems to require cooperation?
It's a great question. We're seeing this massive policy divergence, like the potential scaling back of U.S. Paris commitments. That widens the global adaptation finance gap.
Meaning companies might just move to places with fewer rules.
That's the risk. And when you combine that with the competition for critical minerals, where China has huge dominance, it fuels what's now called green inflation. It actually slows the transition down.
So the whole game changes.
The strategic imperative moves past aspirational goals. It's now about enforced adaptation and resilience, just for immediate business continuity. The focus is on secure supply chains.
Okay. So to bring this all together, 2026 is this threshold year. Climate risk is no longer an externality. It's a quantified, mandatory part of financial management. Success means prioritizing hard adaptation.
And that means putting capital into critical resilience pathways. Deploying battery energy storage systems, BESS, and intelligent grid infrastructure.
Not just for decarbonization.
No, as an insurance policy.
Yeah.
An insurance policy against grid failure during those 3-degree heat spikes we talked about.
Right. So here's the final thought. Despite all this mounting scientific and regulatory evidence, our sources all agree. Climate risk is still systematically undervalued or maybe mispriced in the broad financial markets.
It absolutely is.
So what strategic opportunities does that disconnect create? For those of you who can price this risk correctly today before the convergence fully hits, something to think about as you prepare for the big shift.